Hello, this is Power in the Word, and I'm Scott Reed. Thanks for joining me for this week's discussion in our Old Testament Come Follow Me as we look at the scattering of Israel as found in the book of Kings, specifically chapters 16 through 25 of 2 Kings. Jumping into our scriptures, I'm going to take you back to start, though, into 1 Kings chapter 11, verse 26, where we have a man by the name of Jeroboam appear. Notice Jeroboam's name in Hebrew means the people will contend, and certainly that is what happens. We jump down to verse 29, and it states, "And it came to pass at the time when Jeroboam went out of Jerusalem that the prophet Ahijah the Silonite found him in the way, and he had clad himself with a new garment, and they two were alone in the field." Ahijah, the prophet of the Lord, meaning brother of Jehovah. Verse 30, "And Ahijah catches Jeroboam by this new garment that was on him, and it tore," or it rent, "into 12 pieces. And he turns to Jeroboam and says, Take thee 10 pieces. For thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, Behold, I will rend the kingdom out of the hand of Solomon, and will give 10 tribes to thee." And so we have here, through an object lesson, again with a tearing or a renting of a robe, 10 different pieces then obtained by Jeroboam to be taken to the north, that you know as the 10 tribes of Israel, and their division from the other 2 tribes, which from chapter 12, verse 1, we read of a man by the name of Rehoboam, who is the son of Solomon. And coming down to verse 19, "So Israel rebels against Rehoboam, against the house of David unto this day. And it came to pass, when all Israel heard that Jeroboam was come again, that they sent and called him unto the congregation, and made him king over all Israel. There was none that followed the house of David, but the tribe of Judah only." And then this little note in the next verse, "But we also put with Judah the tribe of Benjamin." So underline 19, 20, and 21, and we establish ourselves in the south or the southern kingdom under Rehoboam. And note from Kings 14:30 here that there is war between Rehoboam and Jeroboam all their days. So from the northern kingdom of Jeroboam, you know it as Israel contending with Rehoboam in the south, known as Judah. Let me have you then look at this slide of the dividing of Israel, of which you can view in your Bible dictionary under chronology. We see on the left-hand side the northern tribes of Israel and the southern tribes on the right, both Judah and Benjamin, being led by Jeroboam and Rehoboam. On your left, I've listed for you for the next 250 years the kingship that follows Jeroboam in the north. Not one of the 19 kings listed was righteous. In fact, you might ask yourself, what was the sin of their day? That sin, which started with Jeroboam himself, and the name attached to the sin, and was known for the next 250 years as the sins of Jeroboam. How would you like your name attached to a sin for the next 250 years? Ouch! And so the verses that I've put next to each one of the kings, I would invite you to look up the reference both in 1st and 2nd Kings, underline the verses listed, and find the phrase, the sins of Jeroboam, which you know of as idolatry. That northern kingdom ending, as you can see at the bottom, when Shalmaneser and Tiglath-Pileser, the kings of Assyria, come down and conquer the 10 tribes of Israel in 721 BC, as prophesied by the prophet Isaiah. Here at the bottom of the northern tribes, I've given you the reference of 2 Kings 17, 5 through 23, where we read that Israel will forsake the Lord, worship idols, serve Baal, and reject all that the Lord has given them. The 10 tribes then are carried away captive by the kings of Assyria. And invite you to underline just a few verses here. Verse 3, against him came up Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, and Hoshea became his servant and gave him presents. Verse 6, in the 9th year of Hoshea, king of Assyria, took Samaria and carried Israel away into Assyria. And coming down to verse 18, we read, therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel and removed them out of his sight. There was none left but the tribe of Judah only. Verse 22, for the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam. There's that phrase, which he did. They departed not from them until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight, as he had said by all his servants the prophets. So was Israel carried away out of their own land to Assyria unto this day. Now, coming back over to our slide and viewing the right hand of the slide, I've listed for you the 20 kings of southern Israel, or you know them as Judah, noting that the kings that are underlined were the righteous ones, the others were not. Yet one of those righteous kings is worth noting. Coming back into our scriptures, 2 Kings chapter 18, we are introduced to King Hezekiah. Hezekiah in verse 1, whose name means Jehovah is my strength. And he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that David and his fathers did. Verse 4, for he removed the high places, break the images, cut down the groves, break into pieces the brazen serpent that Moses had made. For unto those days the children of Israel did burn incense to it, and it was called Nehushtan. Notice Hezekiah was not only a righteous individual like some before him, but he was willing to do what no one else was willing to do. And that was breaking down all the idolatrous idols and images of Israel, and therefore secured further life for them and for himself, for his blessing of obedience, his life was extended. Turning to our next chapter, we see that Hezekiah seeks counsel from Isaiah to save Jerusalem. Isaiah prophesies the defeat of the Assyrians and the defeat of Sennacherib. For as Assyria sieged Jerusalem their very last night before battle, An angel, as you can read in your heading, slays 185,000 Assyrians. And Sennacherib says, that's enough. We're going home. And coming over to chapter 20, we see not only that he has secured Judah for a time, but also himself from death, as I mentioned. Verse 1, Hezekiah is now sick unto death. Verse 4, and it came to pass afore Isaiah was gone out into the middle court, that the word of the Lord came to him, saying, No, turn around, go back to Hezekiah, the captain of my people. There's that phrase from several weeks ago. Thus saith the Lord, the God of David, for thy father, I have heard thy prayer, I have seen thy tears. Behold, I will heal thee. On the third day thou shalt go up unto the house of the Lord, and I will add unto thee 15 years of life. And I will deliver thee and this city out of the hand of the king of Syria, and I will defend this city for mine own sake and for my servant David's sake. And coming down to verse 8, we read, And Hezekiah said unto Isaiah, What shall be the sign that the Lord will heal me? And Isaiah said, verse 9, This sign shalt thou have of the Lord, that the Lord will do the thing that he hath spoken. Shall the shadow go forward 10 degrees, or go back 10 degrees? And Hezekiah answered, It is a light thing for the shadow to go down 10 degrees, to go forward in time, but to tell the shadow to return backward 10 degrees? Well, that's something. Verse 11, And Isaiah the prophet cried unto the Lord, and he brought the shadow 10 degrees backwards. The symbol of moving back Hezekiah's life to give him 15 more years of life. An incredible story of a righteous man working amongst not so righteous people. So you'll note again on my slide that the southern kingdom known as Judah will end not by the armies of Assyria, but will end by the armies of King Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, 587 BC, just 13 years after Lehi and his party leave Jerusalem. And before we leave this slide, I would encourage you to study it, to look at it, to mark your scriptures accordingly, that it might be of help to you, noting that 2 Kings 24 and 25 in the end is where we're headed to find the fall of Judah. Note then in your heading of chapter 24 of 2 Kings, Jerusalem is besieged and taken by Nebuchadnezzar. Many of the people of Judah are carried captive into Babylon. Zedekiah becomes king in Jerusalem. He rebels against Babylon by seeking Egyptian aid, and Nebuchadnezzar again besieges Jerusalem. Zedekiah is captured, Jerusalem and the temple are destroyed, and most of the people of Judah are carried away into Babylon. Noting verse 7, that they slay the sons of the king, Zedekiah, before putting out his eyes, and they bind him with fetters of brass and carry him away to Babylon. However, our story does not end there. When we go to the Book of Mormon, a cross-reference you may want to put there in 2 Kings 25 verse 7, we read in Helaman 8 verse 21, And now will you dispute that Jerusalem was destroyed? Will you say that the sons of Zedekiah were not slain? All except it were Mulek. Yea, and do ye not behold that the seed of Zedekiah are with us? And they are driven out of the land of Jerusalem. Giving yourself another cross-reference to Omni chapter 1, verse 14, which reads, "And they discovered a people who were called the people of Zarahemla. Now there is great rejoicing among the people of Zarahemla, and also Zarahemla did rejoice because the people had sent the people of Mosiah with the plates of brass which contained the record of the Jews. But it came to pass," verse 15, "that Mosiah discovered that the people of Zarahemla came out from Jerusalem at the time that Zedekiah, king of Judah, was carried away captive into Babylon." In your scriptures, from my Come Follow Me of the Book of Mormon, the Bible states that the sons of Zedekiah were slain before his eyes, and then the Babylonians put out his eyes, as it was to be the last thing he ever saw in mortality, the death of his children, and carried him in fetters into Babylon. However, Mulek, a word meaning little king, his real name, Nedabiah, the son of Zedekiah, was spared by the power of the Lord, and with other fugitives was directed across the great waters to this land. Here they multiplied, but without religious teachings. It was this people who discovered Coriantumr, the Jaredite, who lived with them for 9 months before his death. These Mulekites were later discovered by the Nephites, and the two people became one, the Mulekites being known henceforth as Nephites. At the conclusion of our discussion here, I wish to give you the details concerning the scattering and also the gathering of Israel, that you might do some added study in the details of the doctrine of the scattering and gathering, as President Nelson declared is the most important subject of our day. Noting here then the scattering of what, who, when, where, why, and how took place, and the gathering as the what, who, when, where, why, and how took place. And hope that you find this helpful in some added scripture study this week. And hope you'll join me again next week as we look at the books of Chronicles. Till then.